The Galactic Union had seen countless worlds in its long history. Stars burned out, planets crumbled, and species rose and fell, all catalogued neatly in their vast archives. Earth, though, was a puzzle they hadn't expected to find. Tucked away in a quiet corner of the galaxy, it spun through space like a wild, untamed thing. Storms raged across its surface, oceans swallowed land, and creatures roamed that defied all logic. The Union's survey drones had flagged it as a Class V hazard world, too chaotic, too dangerous for intelligent life. Yet, there they were, humans, thriving in the mess. Vorn stood at the helm of the observation ship, his 4 eyes blinking nervously. He was a Trelkin, a species known for their shimmering scales and careful nature. As the team's leader, he'd been chosen for his patience, but Earth was testing it. His crew, 3 other aliens from different Union worlds, huddled around screens, watching the humans below. The ship hovered above a small town, cloaked in technology so advanced it should have been invisible. Should have been. "They're pointing at us," muttered Lila, a feathered Kivian with a knack for tech. Her claws tapped the console as footage zoomed in. A group of humans stood in an open field, waving sticks with glowing ends, flashlights, they called them, and holding up signs painted with bright colors. One read, "Hello, space friends." Another said, "Come down, we've got cake." Vorn's scales flickered with unease. "That's impossible. Our cloaking field bends light and sound. They can't see us." "Maybe it's broken," suggested Toru, a stout, rocky-skinned Gorlan who handled security. He poked at the cloaking controls, but the readings were perfect. "Or maybe they're guessing." "Guessing?" Vorn snapped. "They're shining lights right at us. Look, that one's waving like he knows we're watching." On the screen, a human in a red hat swung his flashlight in circles, grinning up at the sky. The 4th crew member, a wispy, gas-like being named Syl, floated closer. "Their scans show no advanced tech. How do they detect us? Are they dangerous?" "Dangerous?" Vorn repeated, staring at the footage. The Union's data painted humans as fragile, soft bodies, no natural armor, prone to injury. Yet they lived on a planet that should have crushed them. Volcanoes erupted, winds howled, and beasts prowled, but these bipeds built homes and laughed in the chaos. "I don't know," he admitted. "Let's observe longer." Hours passed, and the humans didn't stop. More gathered, dragging tables into the field. They lit a fire, not a weapon, but something that smoked and smelled oddly sweet. Children ran around, chasing each other with sticks, while adults set out plates of food. The signs grew sillier, "Aliens welcome," and "Try our pie." Vorn's crew watched, baffled. "They're not afraid," Lila said, her feathers ruffling. "Every species we've studied hides or fights when they sense us. These ones, they're inviting us." "Maybe it's a trap," Toru grumbled, his rocky fists clenching. "Lure us down, then attack. The Union's seen that before." Syl pulsed with doubt. "With what?" "Sticks and baked goods. Their weapons are primitive, metal tubes and loud noises. Nothing to pierce our hull." Vorn didn't answer. He zoomed in on a human tossing a round object to a furry creature, a dog, the database called it. The dog leaped, caught it, and ran back, tail wagging. Nearby, another human held a coiled thing, a snake, letting it slither over their arm like it was normal. These people lived with danger every day, yet they smiled. It didn't make sense. The situation escalated when a human climbed a ladder, holding a blinking box. He aimed it at the ship and pressed a button. A light flashed. "What was that?" Toru barked. "A camera," Lila said, checking the scans. "They're taking pictures. Of us." Vorn's scales went pale. "Pictures? They're documenting us? This breaks every protocol." first contact isn't supposed to happen like this. The Galactic Union had rules, centuries of them. Observe, assess, then decide, uplift the species, avoid them, or, if they're too hostile, contain them. But humans weren't following the script. They weren't cowering or shooting. They were excited. "Sir, they're setting up more lights," Sil reported. The field now glowed with strings of bulbs, forming an arrow pointing to a clear patch of grass. A new sign appeared, "Land here." "They want us to come down," Lila whispered. "What do we do?" Vorn paced, his mind racing. The Union would demand a report. If he fled, they'd call him a coward. If he landed, he'd risk everything. But staying here, invisible yet somehow seen, felt ridiculous. "We need more data," he said finally. "Let's lower the ship, just a little. Test their reaction." The crew hesitated but obeyed. The ship hummed, descending slightly. The humans cheered, jumping and clapping. One ran off and returned with a box blaring noise, "Music," the scan said. Others started dancing, waving at the sky. It was chaos, but not the kind Vorn expected. No weapons, no threats, just joy. "They're insane," Toru muttered. "Who does this?" "Insane or brilliant," Sil countered. "They're not afraid of the unknown. That's rare." Vorn stared at the screens, his 4 eyes narrowing. The Union had labeled humans as weak, a footnote on a doomed world. But weak things didn't face the stars with open arms. Weak things didn't turn a quiet night into a party for strangers they couldn't even see. "Sir, they're bringing out more food," Lila said. "Something called hot dogs. Should we respond?" Vorn rubbed his scaled head. "No. Not yet. But we can't ignore this. Send a message to the Union. Tell them we've been spotted, and that humans aren't what we thought." As the message beamed into space, the humans below lit sparklers, tiny bursts of light fizzing in the dark. The field became a glow of welcome, a challenge to everything the Union knew. Vorn's crew watched, unsure if they'd found a threat, a mystery, or something else entirely. Below, the townsfolk dragged out a banner, "Stay for dinner." The ship hovered, silent, as the night stretched on. The Galactic Union observation ship lingered above the glowing field, its cloaking field humming faintly as Vorn and his crew wrestled with their next move. The humans below hadn't stopped their strange welcome. The lights twinkled, the music thumped, and the smell of something smoky drifted up through the ship's sensors. Vorn's scales twitched as he watched the townsfolk drag out more tables, piling them with food and waving at the sky. The Union's protocols screened for retreat. Unplanned contact was a disaster waiting to happen, but curiosity gnawed at him. These humans weren't just fearless, they were insistent. "We can't stay hidden forever," Sil said, her gaseous form swirling with unease. "They know we're here. If we leave now, they'll just keep looking for us." "She's right," Lila added, her feathers smoothing as she studied the screens. "Their scans show basic tools, but they're clever. They'll figure out a way to track us." Toru crossed his rocky arms. "Then we fight. Land, show strength, make them back off." Vorn shook his head. "No. They're not threatening us. They're inviting us. We land, but we stay cautious. Shields up, no weapons. We need answers." The crew exchanged wary glances, but the ship began its descent. The hum of its engines softened, and the cloaking field flickered off, revealing a sleek, silver craft that gleamed under the moonlight. The humans below erupted in cheers, clapping and shouting as the ship touched down on the grass. Dust swirled, and Vorn braced himself. This was it, first contact, whether the Union liked it or not. The hatch hissed open, and Vorn stepped out, his scales catching the glow of the humans' lights. Lila followed, her feathers fluffing nervously, with Toru and Sil close behind. A crowd had gathered, wide-eyed but smiling, and at the front stood a woman in a greasy jacket, her hands stained with oil. She had a bright grin and a tangle of dark hair tied back with a rag. "Hi there," she called, stepping forward. "I'm Lila." "No, wait, you're Lila too, huh?" She laughed, pointing at the feathered alien. "Guess we'll call me Mechanic Lila. Welcome to Earth." Vorn blinked all four eyes. "You speak our language?" "Nah," Mechanic Lila said, tapping a small device clipped to her ear. "Picked up your signal a while back. Took us a few days to crack it, but we figured you'd show up eventually. Come on, grab some food." The aliens froze as the crowd parted, revealing tables loaded with steaming plates. The scans identified it as cooked meat, plants, and something called bread rolls. Mechanic Lila grabbed a stick with charred meat and waved it. "This is a hot dog. Try it. We've got plenty." Toru's rocky skin rumbled. "It's a weapon," he muttered, eyeing the sizzling tip. Mechanic Lila burst out laughing. "A weapon? It's food, big guy. Here, watch." She took a bite, chewing happily, then tossed one to a furry creature nearby, a dog, that snapped it up midair. "See? Harmless." Vorn hesitated, then accepted a hot dog with a trembling claw. The smell was strange, warm, and oddly inviting. He nibbled it, and his scales flickered in surprise. "This sustains you?" "Yup." Mechanic Lila said. "We grill stuff all the time. Keeps us going through storms, breakdowns, whatever. You guys eat, right?" "We do," Syl said, floating closer. "But not like this. Your world, it's harsh. How do you thrive here?" Mechanic Lila shrugged. "We fix things. Break stuff, build it back better. Like this," she pointed to a rumbling machine nearby, patched together with mismatched metal. "Old tractor. Died last year, but I got it running with some wire and spit. Works fine now." The alien stared. The Union had ships that could cross galaxies, but they were built in pristine factories, not cobbled together from junk. Lila, the feathered one, tilted her head. "You repair with scraps?" "Whatever works," Mechanic Lila said. "No point in crying over what's broken. You just hammer it, till it's useful again." A man stepped up beside her, holding a coiled creature, a snake, that flicked its tongue lazily. "This is Slither," he said. "Found him in my shed. Keeps the mice away. Want to hold him?" Toru recoiled, his fists clenching. "That's a predator." "Sure," the man said, grinning. "But he's chill. We look out for each other." Vorn's mind spun. The Union classified predators as threats, things to avoid or control. Yet here were humans, sharing space with them like it was normal. He glanced at Mechanic Lila, who was now handing out cups of a dark, bubbling liquid. "Try this too," she said. "Cola. Fizzy stuff. Kids love it." Syl took a sip, her form rippling with delight. "It tingles. Why do you make this?" Mechanic Lila laughed. "Why not? Life's tough, so we make fun where we can. Speaking of which, what's your ship made of?" "Looks slick." Vorn stiffened. Union tech was a closely guarded secret. "It's advanced. We travel between stars." "Cool." Mechanic Lila said, her eyes lighting up. "Mind if we take a peek? I've got a knack for engines. Bet I could learn a thing or two." "No." Toru barked, stepping forward. "It's ours. You don't touch it." Mechanic Lila raised her hands. "Easy, big guy. Just curious. No harm meant." The tension hung thick for a moment, but then a child darted forward, holding a stick with a gooey white blob. Try a marshmallow, she chirped, shoving it at Toru. He stared, baffled, then took it. The crowd chuckled as he bit into it, his rocky face softening. Sweet, he mumbled, almost to himself. See? Mechanic Lila said. We're not here to fight. Just sharing what we've got. You're welcome to stay. Vorn watched as the humans mingled, offering food and asking questions. Where are you from? Got any pets up there? Can your ship do tricks? They weren't afraid, not of the ship, not of the aliens, not of their wild world. It was unnerving, but oddly inspiring. A crackle interrupted the scene, Vorn's communicator. He stepped aside, answering it. Report, came a stern voice from the Union. They've seen us, Vorn said. No aggression. They're friendly. Persistent. They want us to stay. Friendly. The voice sounded skeptical. Class V worlds don't breed friendship. They're hiding something. Stay alert. The call ended, and Vorn turned back to the crowd. Mechanic Lila was showing Lila the alien a box that played music, a radio, she called it, pieced together from old parts. Nearby, the snake guy let Syl hover near Slither, who flicked his tongue curiously. Toru, still holding a marshmallow stick, was surrounded by kids asking if he could lift a tractor. They're not hiding anything, Vorn murmured to himself. They're just, like this. The night stretched on, filled with laughter and chatter. The humans brought out a big metal box, a grill, and the smoky smell grew stronger. Mechanic Lila waved Vorn over. Come on, try the ribs. You haven't lived till you've had barbecue. Barbecue? Vorn echoed, stepping closer. The scans flagged it as charred animal flesh, but the humans ate it with glee. He took a piece, biting into it cautiously. It was messy, smoky, and strange, but good. See? Mechanic Lila said, slapping his shoulder. Stick with us, you'll get the hang of it. What do you say, friends? Vorn glanced at his crew. Lila was fiddling with the radio, Syl was floating among the kids, and Toru was reluctantly letting them climb his rocky arms. The Union would hate this, unplanned, messy, against every rule. But something about it felt right. Maybe, he said, scales flickering. For now. Mechanic Lila grinned. Good enough. Stick around, space friends. We've got more to show you. As the fire crackled and the stars shone, Vorn sent another message to the Union, contact made. No threats. They're different. More data needed. He didn't mention the barbecue, or the fact that, for the first time in cycles, he was starting to enjoy himself. Below, the humans cheered, oblivious to the galaxy's doubts, their wild spirit lighting up the night. The morning sun climbed over the horizon, casting golden light across the field where the Galactic Union ship rested. The humans had stayed late into the night, sharing food and stories with Vorn and his crew. The air still smelled of barbecue and marshmallows, and a few townsfolk lingered, tidying up or chatting with the aliens. Vorn stood by the ship's hatch, his scales shimmering faintly as he processed the last few hours. Mechanic Lila's laughter echoed nearby as she showed Lila the alien how to tweak her patched-up radio. Toru, the rocky Gorlan, sat on the grass, letting kids draw on his stone-like arms with chalk. Syl floated above, her gaseous form glowing softly in the dawn. It felt strange, too peaceful for a Class V hazard world. The Galactic Union had taught Vorn to expect danger, not friendship. His communicator buzzed, snapping him out of his thoughts. He answered, and a sharp voice cut through. Observation team, report, said Krell, a high-ranking Trelkan diplomat known for his stern demeanor. The Union received your message. Friendly contact. Explain. Vorn straightened. They saw us, sir. Before we could decide, they welcomed us. No weapons, no threats, just food and questions. They're curious, adaptable. Not what the data predicted. Krell's tone hardened. Class V worlds don't welcome outsiders. They fight or flee. You're too close. We're sending an assessment team. Prepare for my arrival. The call ended, and Vorn's scales dimmed. Krell wasn't like him, where Vorn hesitated, Krell acted. If he saw humans as a risk, he'd push for containment, not cooperation. Vorn glanced at Mechanic Lila, who was now tinkering with a rusty bike, and wondered how she'd react to a test. Hours later, a second Union ship descended, larger and sharper-edged than Vorn's. Krell emerged, his scales a deep, unyielding blue, flanked by 2 guards with glowing staves. The townsfolk gathered, curious but unfazed. Mechanic Lila wiped her hands on her jacket and strode over, grinning. More visitors. You guys throw a good party up there, she said, eyeing Krell's stern face. What's your name? Krell, diplomatic overseer, he replied, his voice clipped. We're here to assess your species. The Union doesn't trust uncharted worlds. Fair enough, Mechanic Lila said. I'm Lila, Mechanic Lila, to keep it simple. What's the test? Krell raised a claw, and a guard set down a sleek, broken Union drone, its circuits fried, its hull cracked. This device is beyond your technology. Repair it in 1 rotation, your day. If you fail, we'll assume you're no threat, or use. Mechanic Lila's eyes lit up. A challenge? Sweet. Give me a sec. She waved over a skinny young man with wild hair and a toolbox. Tim, check this out. Alien tech. Tim, a local inventor, crouched beside the drone, poking it with a screwdriver. Looks busted, but I've seen worse. Let's crack it open. Krell crossed his arms, smug. The drone's systems were light years beyond Earth's grasp, quantum relays, plasma conduits, tech no human could fathom. He expected failure. Vorn, though, wasn't so sure. He'd seen Mechanic Lila's tractor and Tim's eager grin. The humans dragged the drone to a shed, pulling out tools, hammers, wires, even a rusty welder. Krell watched from a distance, his guards scanning the crowd. Primitive, he muttered. They'll break it more. Vorn stayed quiet, joining Mechanic Lila and Tim. Inside the shed, the air buzzed with energy. Tim pried open the drone's casing, revealing a tangle of glowing parts. Whoa, he breathed. This ain't like my radio kits, but, see that? Power cell shot. We can rig something. Mechanic Lila nodded, grabbing a car battery from a shelf. This'll juice it up. What's that blinky thing? Navigation core, maybe, Tim said, squinting. Let's bypass it with some copper wire. Old school, but it'll work. Krell's voice cut in from the doorway. You're using junk. That's not repair, it's guessing. Guessing's half the fun, Mechanic Lila shot back, soldering wires with a grin. We'll figure it out. Hours passed, and the shed became a whirlwind of activity. Townsfolk brought spare parts, old phones, a toaster, even a lawnmower engine. Krell's smugness faded as the drone hummed faintly, its lights flickering. Vorn watched, amazed. The Union built perfection, humans built possibilities. Then the sky darkened. A storm rolled in, fast and fierce, wind howling and rain lashing the field. The shed shook, and a tree crashed nearby, pinning Krell's ship. His guards panicked, their staves useless against the chaos. Krell shouted orders, but the wind drowned him out. Mechanic Lila didn't flinch. Tim, keep working. I'll handle this. She grabbed a rope and ran outside, rallying the townsfolk. Get that trunk off their ship. Move. Vorn followed, stunned as humans braved the storm. They tied ropes to the fallen tree, dragging it clear with sheer grit. Mechanic Lila climbed onto Krell's ship, securing loose panels as rain soaked her. "You okay down there?" she yelled to Krell. He stared up, scales paling. Why risk this?" "Neighbors help neighbors," she said, sliding down. "Even cranky ones." The storm passed, leaving the field muddy but calm. Krell's ship was scratched but safe, and the humans returned to the shed, soaked and laughing. Tim bolted the drone's casing shut, connecting the car battery. It whirred to life, hovering a foot off the ground, faster than before, thanks to a rewired thruster. Krell's jaw dropped. "You improved it?" "Tweaked it," Tim said, shrugging. "Added some juice. Fly it, see for yourself." Krell took the controls, guiding the drone through loops it couldn't do before. His scales flickered, a mix of shock and grudging respect. "This defies logic. Your tools are ancient." "Ancient but effective," Mechanic Lila said, wiping mud off her face. "We don't give up easy." Vorn stepped forward. "Sir, they saved your ship, fixed the drone, better than fixed it. They're not a threat. They're capable." Krell didn't reply, staring at the humming drone. The Union saw humans as weak, but weakness didn't rebuild alien tech with junk or face storms head-on. He turned to Mechanic Lila. "Your kind confuses me. Why help us?" She grinned. "Why not? You're here, we're here. Might as well get along." Before Krell could respond, a sharp beep cut through the air, Vorn's communicator. He answered, and a frantic voice crackled from the Union. "Emergency signal detected. Unknown fleet approaching Earth, hostile intent. Orders." Vorn's scales flared. "Hostile? Who?" "Unknown. They're fast, ETA 3 rotations. Prepare defenses." The call ended, and silence fell. Krell's guards gripped their staves, while Mechanic Lila and Tim exchanged looks. "Trouble?" she asked. "Seems so," Vorn said. "A fleet's coming. Not ours. They might attack." Mechanic Lila didn't blink. "Attack us? Okay, what's the plan?" Krell snorted. "Plan? You have no ships, no weapons. You're defenseless." "Maybe," she said, crossing her arms. "But we've got ideas. You in or out?" Krell hesitated, then nodded slowly. "In. For now." Vorn felt a spark, hope, maybe. The Union doubted humans, but he'd seen their grit. Mechanic Lila clapped her hands. "Good. Tim, round up the crew. We've got work to do." As the townsfolk scattered, Krell muttered to Vorn, "They're mad. Brave, but mad." "Mad's what we need," Vorn replied, watching Mechanic Lila sketch plans in the mud. The drone hovered nearby, a symbol of what humans could do with nothing but will and scraps. The signal loomed over them, a shadow of danger, but for the first time, Vorn wondered if the Union had underestimated the real strength of this wild world. The field buzzed with tension as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of orange and purple. The Galactic Union ships, Vorn's sleek observer and Krell's sharper diplomatic vessel, stood silent beside the muddy shed where Mechanic Lila and Tim worked. The emergency signal from the Union had shaken everyone, alien and human alike. A rogue fleet, unidentified and hostile, was barreling toward Earth, set to arrive in less than 3 days. The Union's voice had been clear: prepare defenses. But Earth had no starships, no plasma cannons, just a small town, a handful of aliens, and a lot of determination. Mechanic Lila stood in the shed's doorway, wiping grease from her hands as she studied a scratched-up tablet Tim had rigged to tap into the Union signal. "So, these jerks think we're an easy target?" she asked, her voice steady despite the stakes. Krell, his blue scales glinting in the fading light, nodded stiffly. Their trajectory suggests they see Earth as undefended. Class V worlds are rare, most species die out. They likely want resources or territory. Well, they picked the wrong planet, Tim said, grinning as he tightened a bolt on the repaired Union drone. We don't go down easy. Vorn's scales flickered with doubt. You have no weapons to match them. Their ships will be armed, energy shields, particle beams. What can you do? Mechanic Lila smirked. We've got something better than beams. Ideas. Tim, what's in the junkyard? Tim's eyes lit up. Old satellites, busted trucks, a couple generators. Oh, and that radio tower we never fixed. Perfect, she said, turning to Krell. Your union's got fancy tech. Can it talk to our stuff? Krell hesitated, then nodded. Our systems can interface, but your equipment is ancient. What's your plan? Outsmart M, Mechanic Lila said. We'll need your ships, too. You in? Krell glanced at Vorn, who gave a small nod. Yes, Krell said finally. But I hope you know what you're doing. The next 2 days were a whirlwind. The townsfolk rallied, dragging junk from sheds and garages, rusted satellite dishes, coils of wire, even a beat-up microwave someone swore still worked. Mechanic Lila and Tim led the charge, sketching plans on a tarp with chalk. Vorn and his crew pitched in, syncing Union tech with Earth's oddities, while Krell coordinated with the Union for updates. The rogue fleet was close, scans showed 6 ships, bristling with weapons, slowing as they neared Earth's orbit. They're scanning us, Lila the alien reported, her feathers ruffling as she monitored the Union console. No hails. They're not here to talk. Then we don't give them time to shoot, Mechanic Lila said. Tim, how's the net? Tim hefted a tangle of cables linked to a generator. Ready. We've got 5 old satellites hooked up, Cold War relics. They can't fight, but they'll jam signals like nobody's business. Vorn tilted his head. Jam signals? Yeah, Tim said. Flood their comms with noise. Confuse M. Then we hit M with the tower. Krell's scales darkened. A tower? You're mad. Nope, Mechanic Lila said, pointing to a rickety metal structure on a hill. Old radio tower. We've rigged it to bounce your ship's cloaking field back at them. Make M think there's a dozen of us. Syl pulsed with excitement. A decoy swarm. Clever. Won't stop them forever, Toru rumbled, but it'll buy time. Time's all we need, Mechanic Lila said. Let's move. Night fell as the plan kicked into gear. The rogue fleet entered orbit, dark shapes against the stars, their engines glowing ominously. Vorn's ship hummed to life, beaming the cloaking signal to the tower, which flickered and projected ghostly images of fake ships across the sky. Tim flipped a switch, and the satellites, launched earlier with a makeshift catapult, blasted static across every frequency. The enemy ships hesitated, their formation faltering. They're confused, Lila the alien said, watching the scans. Their targeting's off. Now. Mechanic Lila shouted. Krell's ship fired a low-energy pulse, not to destroy, but to overload the lead ship sensors. Sparks flared in orbit as the rogue fleet scattered, firing blindly at the decoys. The townsfolk cheered, but Mechanic Lila stayed focused. Phase 2. Tim, the fireworks. Tim ran to a crate, lighting fuses on a pile of homemade rockets, cobbled from fuel cans and scrap. They streaked upward, bursting in bright flashes that mimicked weapon fire. The enemy ships veered again, one crashing into another in the chaos. Vorn stared, scales glowing. This works. Humans don't fight fair, Mechanic Lila said with a grin. We fight smart. The battle stretched on, a dance of tricks and grit. The rogue fleet, expecting an easy win, found no targets to hit, just noise, ghosts, and dazzling lights. After an hour, their lead ship signaled retreat, and the others followed, limping back into the void. The sky cleared, and the field erupted in cheers. Krell lowered his communicator, his voice stunned. The Union saw everything. They're impressed. Good, Mechanic Lila said, brushing dirt off her jacket. Now they know what we're made of. Days later, the Union sent a formal delegation, not to judge, but to welcome. Krell stood beside Vorn as a silver-robed official addressed the crowd. Earth's ingenuity and spirit have earned you a place among us. Will you join the Galactic Union? Mechanic Lila stepped forward, Tim at her side. If it means exploring the stars, and fixing your stuff, yeah, we're in. The official's eyes gleamed. Then it settled. Partners, not subjects. The townsfolk cheered again, louder this time, as Union ships landed to exchange tech and ideas. Vorn watched Mechanic Lila show off her tractor to a curious alien engineer, while Tim traded notes with Lila the alien on signal jamming. Toru, still chalk-covered, lifted kids onto his shoulders, and Syl floated among them, glowing brighter than ever. Krell approached Vorn, his scales softer now. I was wrong. They're not mad. They're remarkable. Yeah, Vorn said, smiling faintly. They don't just survive. They thrive. Later, Mechanic Lila climbed atop the shed, addressing the crowd. We beat the odds today, folks. But this is just the start. The galaxy's big, and we've got work to do, building, fixing, exploring. Who's with me? Hands shot up, alien and human alike. Tim lit a sparkler, waving it high, and the night filled with light and laughter. Earth had faced the stars and won, not with guns, but with heart and hustle. The Union had a new ally, one that didn't follow rules but rewrote them. As the celebration stretched into dawn, Vorn sent a final report: Earth is no hazard world. It's a force, wild, clever, unstoppable. Recommend full alliance. He didn't mention the fireworks or the tractor, but he suspected the Union would learn about those soon enough. The galaxy had underestimated humans, thinking them weak for living among chaos. Now, it saw the truth: they didn't just live with it, they danced with it, turning scrap into miracles and strangers into friends. And as the stars shone above, Earth's newest chapter began, one of endless possibility, fueled by a spirit no fleet could break.